cats with superpowers isn't an element exclusive to the Power of Three and Omen of the Stars arcs. Those arcs certainly focused most heavily on them. Unfortunately, that was less out of a desire to tell a specific story involving superpowered cats, and more out of a need to fill space while waiting for the Ashfern family drama plotline to play out. By the time of Omen of the Stars, they had already made several missteps in the formation of the powers, and didn't manage to correct those by the time of the final battle, leading to even the clan's victory over the Dark Forest having nothing to do with the powers that were supposedly made to use in that very fight. One of the most tangled aspects of the powers plot is actually in what the powers themselves are. From fairly early into the process of writing the site, the Aarons already knew that Jaypaw, Lionpaw, and Hollypaw would have superpowers, and Jaypaw is using his throughout the first book, including a moment where he uses it to see, in Firestar's memories, the exact prophecy that his powers are based around. There will be 3 kin of your kin who hold the power of the stars in their paws. This prophecy, like many in the series, is quite vague. It says that 3 members of Firestar's family will have powers, but it doesn't say who those cats are, what any of their powers are, when they will use their powers, or what they will be used for. Strictly speaking, this prophecy doesn't even say that they'll be born with powers. They could all be given power for a single special battle or other climactic moment and still follow the prophecy to a T. The reason for all of this vagueness is simple. At the time the Aarons were writing this, and most other prophecies, they didn't yet know how it would play out. Warriors books are written 3 books in advance, so Outcast was being drafted as they finished up with the site. They don't know while writing the site what will happen in Sunrise, let alone The Last Hope. And in case you were wondering, the first time that Lionpaw and Hollypaw are even told about the prophecy's existence is in the space between Outcast and Eclipse. Hollyleaf herself was originally intended to be one of the 3 like her brothers, and her eventual confirmation of lacking a power was a last-minute decision made in the latter half of the arc, in large part because Victoria Holmes had found no luck in thinking of a power for her until then. Now, knowing how tremendously popular Hollyleaf has become as a result of that choice, and as a massive Hollyleaf fan myself, I do believe that particular choice did more good than harm. However, it also resulted in Hollyleaf having a fairly inconsistent characterization and storyline, one that continued to bounce and sway even through to her less than perfect death, which I'm sure I'll have more to say on in a different video. Here, though, I'd like to stick to the topic. Even once her power had been chosen, it didn't affect her story much. Through Long Shadows and Sunrise, Hollyleaf's main priority is still about her parentage and the possibility of not being clanborn, or later being half-clan. In other words, she was concerned with what the plot of the arc was originally conceived to be. There doesn't even exist a single scene where Hollyleaf realizes that she doesn't have a power, instead thinking that none of the siblings are part of the 3, since without Squirrelflight as a biological mother, they might not be related to Firestar at all. The first time she has to confront her separation from the prophecy is when she comes back and meets Dovewing and the Forgotten Warrior. But even then, we don't get any of her thoughts without her point of view, and most of what we do see is her trying to make up for the murder she committed, rather than anything to do with her power or place in the prophecy. Lionblaze's power, meanwhile, definitely existed, and if you've read or know the story of Power of Three, you probably have at least a general conception of what that power is. However, the exact description of what his power is would change depending on who you asked, from not being hurt to instantly winning any battle to general strength or just anger. This is because his power was only really invented in late Outcast, in a distasteful event in the tribe, which led to many mistakes in it both before and after its implementation. He definitely doesn't instantly win any battles he's involved in, either on his own or with his clan. There are only 7 battles involving him before the end of Omen of the Stars. A border skirmish with ShadowClan in the site, fighting the tribe invaders in Outcast, fighting WindClan and RiverClan in Eclipse, the battle with the Beavers in the Fourth Apprentice before they realized they needed to destroy the dam, a second battle with ShadowClan in Fading Echoes, a second battle with WindClan and Soul in the Tunnels in The Forgotten Warrior, and the big Dark Forest battle in The Last Hope. Now, 7 is a very small number to make any judgment off of, but importantly here, even one of those battles was flat out lost. When the traveling group fought the Beavers, Rippletail died. All of them were overwhelmed, and they had to retreat, with Lionblaze himself making the call. And when they went back the second time, Lionblaze and Dovewing worked to tear the dam apart while the others distracted the Beavers directly, so he wasn't even a part of that battle. Along with that, the battle in Fading Echoes was only declared to be won by Thornclaw, but both ThunderClan and ShadowClan lost a high-ranking life that day, so whether Lionblaze won them the battle or not is questionable. Even beyond that, though, winning the majority of battles you are involved in is a trait shared by a majority of Warriors protagonists, especially those in the main series. It doesn't seem all that special for Lionblaze specifically, and he has been beaten even in single combat, with Berry Nose nonetheless, so being undefeatable doesn't seem like a possible power for him. The second most prominent idea is that he can't be hurt, but this is proven false many, many times. Lionpaw is regularly scratched by the environment or by other cats, and even if his power was meant to be used exclusively against the Dark Forest, it wouldn't work, because Tigerstar himself, effectively, if not literally the leader of the Dark Forest, was easily able to draw blood. Suffice to say, he is in no way indestructible, no matter how many times he comes out of a battle without any scratches of his own. The only remaining possibility seems to be that, as lines like this imply, his power is a form of adrenaline that allows him to have more energy, anger, passion, or focus during battles. If this is his power, it overlaps greatly with his anger issues that exist outside of battle, and it is hard to determine the line between the two. But it also doesn't seem that powerful. If the adrenaline can't guarantee him a win, he'll still be just as hurt by any attacks, and the anger he has can make him kill cats he didn't mean to, what benefit does that power provide? How is it different from any strong, angry, rampaging warrior doing the same thing? In my view, at least, it isn't really. The issue with Lionblaze is that his power was only developed by looking back on what he had already done and who he already was. So the superpower he was described to have is exactly what any average cat could have as well, making it seem significantly less like the power of the stars is in his paws. The opposite problem exists in Jayfeather. His power was being used from the first book, primarily because it had the most utility. Letting Jayfeather know what his clanmates thought about him helped to push his isolation and explain why he didn't care for social niceties, and seeing into other cats' dreams and memories not only got him his spot as a medicine cat, but revealed the prophecy to himself, the readers, and eventually Hollypaw and Lionpaw too. With Jaypaw as a point of view, having Firestar or even StarClan reach out to the three became unnecessary, and they could become an independent group learning to live with their powers without guidance. That said, the utility of mental powers may have also been a detriment, as it caused the rules and limits of Jayfeather's powers to constantly be stretched over the series, with various additional elements being added over time. I left it intentionally vague before, but even what basic power Jayfeather was meant to have is unclear. It was either mind reading, where you can hear the thoughts of others around you, or empathetic abilities, where you can tell what someone else is feeling and sometimes feel it yourself. Jayfeather was definitely almost never compelled to feel what another cat was feeling, like Yellowfang was in her Super Edition, but there are some examples where he did, and he is consistently able to tell with detailed accuracy what cats around him are feeling. Yet he is also able to tell exactly what cats are thinking down to the word, hearing them in his mind as if they were speaking aloud, and is also capable of walking into dreams, seeing memories, and somehow spiritually entering a cat's mind to speak with aspects of them separate from who they naturally are. This all isn't to mention the time travel he was somehow able to accomplish into a past self's body without any trace of that past self being there, even for the period between Long Shadows and Sign of the Moon where Jayfeather wasn't back in time at all. These different abilities do all share the similarity of being mental powers, but that is a category, not a single power on its own, and Jayfeather might well have access to nearly all of them, with the exception of those that allow you to control another mind. Where compiling Lionblaze's different accounts together ends up stripping him of any real power, compiling Jayfeather's abilities makes him seem overpowered, not in comparison to a normal cat, but in comparison to the other cats who share his destiny. The three are supposed to be powerful, and I think Jayfeather is the best example of that being true, but having so many different abilities seems more unbalanced than they are supposed to be. Dovewing is, in my mind, the one who got the best balance of power and consistency, which makes sense. Unlike with Jayfeather, Lionblaze, or even Hollyleaf, by the time the errands got to Dovewing, they had a whole arc of practice behind them, the chance to focus on nothing but powers for Omen of the Stars, and an entire book, The Fourth Apprentice, whose primary purpose was developing Dovewing as a character in conjunction with the powers they were introducing to the readers. And her powers are heavily tied into who she is, how the plot progresses, and how her life and relationships progress. Dovewing is able to hear, scent, and vaguely see things at extreme distances. This is a powerful ability that could be used in a variety of circumstances, which I think is a good idea for one of the three powers, especially in how normalized it is for Dovewing. Almost every cat is able to hear, see, and scent things, so she went from birth thinking that this was perfectly normal. It is only in seeing how other cats react to her that she comes to understand how different she is, and that she becomes somewhat isolated as a result. This is not only a great power because of its utility, but because of the potential it offers for character, development, and relationships. And while I think some of that could have been built more upon during the story, Dovewing's novella did a great job of capitalizing on those feelings once her power was stripped away. The only issue I have with how it works is that The Last Hope portrays her as being able to stretch her senses into the Dark Forest. The Dark Forest is an afterlife, like StarClan, and both of them have to use magic in order to reach the living world. Presumably, then, those afterlives are on a different plane of some sort. No matter how well her senses worked, Dovewing shouldn't have been able to see into the Dark Forest any more than she could see into the past, or see into any fans AU of her world. But even imagining the Dark Forest is just a short walk away, somehow, there's another issue with this, in that it makes Ivypool's already sparse amount of usefulness in her own story even more obsolete. Whatever tiny bits of information Ivypool was able to gather while in immense danger every night and actively hurting certain cats to maintain her cover would be instantly dwarfed by the information Dovewing could gather by hearing and seeing everything that went on there every night without a sweat. Even if none of these powers ended up being of use in the final battle, and none of the three ended up being pivotal parts of the Dark Forest's defeat, just spending 12 books with cats who have to deal with superpowers and a looming prophecy could have been, and in some ways was, very interesting. But some level of planning, integration, or balancing among the powers would have done a lot of good in helping the prophesized three to feel like equal pedestals of power, and could have potentially inspired them to use those powers for what they were destined to do. Thank you for watching, and always remember to watch where you step. You're not indestructible after all.